Good evening, hockey fans. Today is August 12th, and you're probably wondering, what did I sign up for? It's just Hockey Jerk here. Well, that's all that we have tonight, as my other two compatriots are both on assignment, and it's been almost a month since we've done anything, really. So I kind of figured, why not, throw something together really quick. It is last minute, unfortunately, but, just to, you know, get some conversation going. Given the circumstances, this is not going to be your typical show. There's not really a whole lot of structure. As it is, I didn't even know how to set up a show until about, I don't know, 60 minutes ago ish. So it's fun. It's a learning experience for everybody. I kind of really just want to talk more than anything. Just, a lot of stuff has gone down in the hockey world the last month. Signings, trades. The World Junior Summer Showcase went down. I feel like there's a lot of stuff to talk about. So here we are. It's funny because when Ian and Kevin are here, I feel like I can never stop talking, but it's just myself, and here we are. I feel like I'm struggling to find some words, but you know what? We're gonna make it work, and it's gonna be a good time. Good to see you. I see Steve there. Race Fan Rocks is there. Jessica was there. She probably left when she realized it was me. Didn't want to hear anything about the Penguins, and won't talk about the Penguins too much. I mean, anything that they've done has already been talked about. So my thought process in doing this broadcast was my thought process in doing this broadcast was, kind of just start with the signings and trades, and then maybe the chat or something else that pops into my head will venture the conversation somewhere else. Man, this is really good to see people show up, because it was like 5 minutes to 8 and I see 0 people waiting, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be a total disaster. So I'm glad to see that you're all here. So I mean, I guess, is there anything the chat specifically wants me to talk about? I could just give my opinion on the major signings or the trades, or I don't know if you have questions about something. I mean, I'll really talk about anything. I don't care. I just want to talk. I just want to keep our name out there. We are the only summertime hockey podcast, and it's been a month since we've done one. So, we were due. I guess, just looking at trades, there wasn't really a whole lot for this summer. Obviously, the Ryan O'Reilly one went down. I feel like we talked about that one on air, but, kind of just my quick thoughts again. You look at this trade for St. Louis, and I mean, if you ask me, center depth has been St. Louis's kryptonite for a long time. I mean, with David Backes going out a few years ago, and now Paul Stastny coming out this past deadline, a lot of responsibility was put on Braden Shen, and not that he's a bad player, but you get a guy like Ryan O'Reilly who's good everywhere on the ice, and it's a good piece to have. I think it makes them a lot better. And on the flip side of it, I mean, this trade for me anyways is a win-win for both sides, because like I said, St. Louis, they get a good player in Ryan O'Reilly. They also are able to clear some cap. Sabatka and Berglund were coming in at a combined, $7.2-ish million. And that's a lot of money for, depth guys. And you look at this from Buffalo's perspective, their biggest issue was not having NHL roster players for their team. And now they've got 2 more NHL roster players. And, they're obviously not superstar players. I don't think they'll tear the world apart. But again, NHL players who are familiar with the game. They'll come in, and Buffalo's got so much cap room, so they were able to make it work. And on top of that, Tage Thompson comes into Buffalo, who I think is a center prospect not talked about as much as he probably should be. And I mean, you look at it, obviously Jack Eichel's there, Casey Middlestad is there, and then here comes Tage Thompson. I mean, that center core could be deadly in a couple of years, and who doesn't love draft picks? I mean, a first and a second round pick. I mean, it's kind of hard to complain with that. I know draft picks are obviously speculative when you're making the pick, and St. Louis is arguably going to be a decent team, so it'll probably be a late first round pick, but still a first round pick. I mean, we've seen gems come out in that 17 to 24 area before, so anything is possible. And then really the only other major trade I should say, is also Buffalo Sabres getting Jeff Skinner, which again, you give up Cliff Poo, who's a decent prospect, but again, you get Skinner, who is a proven guy, still young, despite how many years he's been in the league. And, I think Buffalo's going to be able to get him re-signed. And it's the same kind of thing with a Sabatka and with a Berglund, where you're getting NHL roster players in. The difference is Skinner is a pure goal scorer. And, on record is saying, Buffalo Sabres, if they could get more goals, they would probably sniff the playoffs. And now, with these moves they've made, it's looking like they could sniff that playoff spot. Obviously, their goaltending is still going to be a wild card, going from Robin Lehner to Carter Hutton. I don't know if that's an upgrade or if it's a lateral move. I mean, I'm inclined to say that it's an upgrade just based on how Hutton played this past season. But again, anything is possible. Rasmus Dahlin obviously helps the case there too. But, from Buffalo's perspective, you're giving up Cliff Poo, who, again, prospect, but not proven at the NHL level or even the AHL level for that matter. And then 3 draft picks, none of which are Buffalo's 3 first-round picks they have coming up this year. So really smart trade by their GM. And, I think Buffalo is on their way to some good stuff. And, Drew Weber, who is a noted Jack Eichel hater, will say that Buffalo is going to be in the basement once again, but I would not be surprised if Buffalo sniffs a wild card spot till the very end. I really think that team is going places, and I think they're going to get there faster than a lot of people might think. So, okay, trades pretty much covered. Not very exciting in terms of trades, but that's not really, the summertime is not really when trades are exciting anyways. Okay, Mr. Pite, where's the Sharks' big move? I think with the Sharks making a big move, I have to think that they're doing what they did with Evander Kane, where, they identify a guy that they're looking for, and they know that they want him. But what they're doing is they're waiting for the team to get nervous and start to panic on trying to trade a guy. And I mean, if Evander Kane is being traded a year ago, in addition to a first-round pick, it's probably a decent roster player and a prospect. And now, fast forward to this past February, and the Sharks, in my opinion, were able to, take Buffalo for a ride, all things considered. I mean, Evander Kane, obviously a young player, still really good goal scorer, and no reason to believe that he couldn't be part of the solution in Buffalo. But my point being is that you look at a guy like Max Pacioretty, who is in a similar situation as Evander Kane was in Buffalo, where it appears that, he's on the way out. And from everything that's been put out there, it sounds like Montreal is trying to trade him. And I think what the Sharks are doing is they're trying to put the pressure on Montreal, make them, assuming they want Pacioretty, make them feel like they have to get a deal done as soon as possible, which drives the cost down, keeps people happy. Don't spend just to spend. Identify what we need to make the transaction then. Yeah, agreed, Steve. It's better, you don't want to make an impulse signing, just because something didn't go your way. I mean, you think back to, I'm trying to think of, I believe it was what year was that? It was 2014. The Sharks were the last team that were out on the Matt Niskanen sweepstakes. and he ended up going to the Capitals. And then their response to that was re-upping Scott Hannon. So I'm with you. You miss out on the big fish, and it's better to just identify what your team can do and then go from there. And we saw that last year too. I mean, Patrick Marleau leaves, and a lot of people are saying, where's the move? Where are we going to replace him? And Doug Wilson was really smart in seeing what the roster he currently had could do, because as we saw, guys like LeBanc and Meyer and Tierney, they all had career years points wise. So it was a smart gamble on his part. And then, like I said, waiting the right moment to exploit Buffalo's desire to get rid of Evander Kane. And like I said, they were able to pick him up on the cheap. Jessica, when you say you're at 2%, are you referring to your phone battery? Because if that's the case, you need to plug it in and charge it. Because obviously, you don't want to miss out on the quality content coming here at Teal Tinted Glasses. I mean, I think this could be our best show yet. I mean, it's just me, obviously. No, I'm just kidding. But no, I do appreciate all of you guys coming out. I know it was extremely late notice. As it is, I didn't even know I was going to do this until about 2 hours ago. And you guys coming out is awesome. Makes me feel better talking to a computer screen. LeBanc to put on the big boy skate. Yeah, you know what? He put up 40 points this past season, which I don't think is really talked about a whole lot. I know I've forgotten the fact that he racked up a lot of assists this year. I feel like the top line is set. I think you're having Kane with the Joe and Joe line. But you look at that second line, you have Couture and you have Hurdle. I mean, LeBanc is the guy you slot in there, if you ask me. I mean, if as much as I would like to see LeBanc shoot the puck more, if he's going to be a passer first, like he was this past year, why not put him on a line with two guys who love to shoot the puck? I mean, for me, it seems like it's a perfect recipe. And then, you have the emergence of Marcus Sorensen and Timo Meier this year, along with getting Chris Tierney re-signed. So I think if you were to ask me, like, do you think the young guys who took a step last year will take another step this year? I think they will. I think we saw a lot of encouraging play from them. It wasn't in spurts. It was consistent throughout the whole year. And even in the playoffs, I don't really like to buy into narratives like that, but the playoffs is, big boy hockey. And the guys showed up, especially Marcus Sorensen. I mean, second on the team in goals. Like, that's unbelievable. And you'd like to see him do that in the regular season. But as I like to say, regular season doesn't matter. So, I mean, only time will tell in that respect. Fourth line since Eric Fair left. I want to say Dylan Gambrell, partially because, him leaving Denver it's a big step. And I feel like in some respect, the Sharks are going to want to reward him for that. And I mean, from all I've heard, Gambrell is a good player. Obviously lit it up at Denver, and supposedly his game will transfer really well to the NHL. I personally have only watched him in those 2 games he played with the Sharks, but I didn't hate what I saw. So I'm hoping a full season, with a full, not resting for playoffs lineup, I'm thinking will get him a chance to show what he's got. But, Antti Suomela, pronunciation possibly wrong, I think is another candidate to fill in that spot. I mean, if I recall correctly, he either led the Liga in scoring or was the MVP of the Liga. I don't remember which one it was, but I know he earned a really high honor in the SM Liga, which is the Finnish hockey league, last year. So that's exciting. I think ultimately it's going to come down to Gambrell and Suomela for the fourth line center spot. But you know what? Mr. Polite says Alex True. I could see that too. Well known that Alex True is a player I liked. I was happy to see that he got an NHL contract this year. And he played really well with the Barracuda last year. He obviously is a center. You can never have enough centers. Big body, but he moves really well despite his size. And I think he could be, I don't know if dark horse is the right word, but he definitely could be somebody to keep an eye on. He's probably, if anything, he's probably a late cut in training camp. And then as the season goes on, injuries, trades, level of play, obviously all that stuff, anything is possible. I mean, I remember, 2 years ago, O'Regan wasn't even supposed to make the NHL until at least the trade deadline. And then he got called up in November and played a couple games. So really anything is possible. I'm with Cheryl says Gambrell played really well with Denver. I'll have to take her word for it. I didn't watch him with Denver, but everything that I've heard indicates that Cheryl knows what she's talking about. And of course, Vince G. I feel like Vince G has some kind of attachment to Denver. I feel like all of the players he likes to watch conveniently go to Denver. Maybe we'll have to coin Vince G the Denver expert on that one. He can be our insider. Yes, Mr. Polite is Kudafil. I had a feeling. Man, I just 8:21. We've not been going very long here, but you know what? It's good. Just want to say welcome, thank you, and welcome. This is probably the first ever solo Teal Tinted Glasses. It's weird because I'm talking to myself, but I'm not. I'm talking to, the chat. Obviously, this fancy machine says we've got 8 people. Vince, G's keep her going. I'm not going anywhere, Vince. It's fine. But I just want to say, subscribe. Obviously, hit the bell so you'll know when we go live. And then obviously follow us on Twitter. I think the @ is Teal Tinted Pod. That's where all the news is first. But anyways, get those plugs out of the way. So I mean, what else? Did anybody happen to catch any of the World Junior Summer Showcase? I know I was pretty invested in it, especially with the the amount of Sharks prospects who were in it, but also just I guess notable prospects in general. Though I am biased because I really only paid attention to Team USA's games. Hey, well, you know what, Dave? If I'm talking to myself, like if I talk back to myself, well, I mean, I don't know. Anything's possible, right? But yeah, did any of you guys watch the World Junior Summer Showcase? I know Vince watched it, and I think Cheryl caught a little bit of it too. Yeah, Dave talking about Norris. Yeah, Josh Norris played really well. That first game against Sweden, tied the game in regulation with about 7 minutes left and then got the OT winner. That was really fun to watch, especially for how much a lot of us, myself included, were very critical of Josh Norris when he was drafted. But no, he looked like he was doing really well in that tournament. And I believe it was Vince who said how great or how happy is Josh Norris that Quinn Hughes is coming back, which, I mean, yeah, Quinn Hughes is amazing. Vancouver Canucks future defenseman, for those of you who don't know. No, that team was really good. I liked seeing Josh Norris and Brady Tkachuk, who's going to sign with Ottawa in the next few days, together on the power play because, Norris, as we saw in that tournament, he's got a knack for getting the puck to the open guy, and he's a really fluid skater and, very smart with where he's going. And then, obviously Brady Tkachuk is a wrecking ball. In some respects, he's more of an intense player than his brother Matt is. So, yeah, Team USA, they had a pretty good squad out there. Oliver Wahlstrom, Islanders draft pick. I don't know if he had any goals, but he was playing with Josh Norris on the top line for a while. And then, obviously, Jack Hughes. Jack Hughes, the expected -- 1 overall pick this coming year. He had a good tournament as well. I thought it was funny in the game against Canada. Both Jack and Quinn Hughes, the brothers, both of them were given McIsaac on Team Canada. They were giving him some rough business. And I thought that was hilarious. Just, just the brothers jumping in on him. It made me laugh. I didn't really like the ending to that game, though. Where the fight breaks out with 2 seconds left and that crucial face-off should have happened and the refs just ended the game. I didn't really like that. especially because USA was starting to turn it on towards the end of the game. Yeah, agreed, Dave. Norris looked like he is definitely going to, if anything, shatter through that 3C ceiling that a lot of people, and again, myself included, attached to him, last year. But it's all about development. I mean, we look back to Joe Pavelski. I mean, a 7th-round pick. You don't expect a 7th-round pick to have 2 40-goal seasons, and yet here he is, and he did. And he obviously he had a good year at Michigan this past year. Good summer showcase. Going to be interesting to see what he does at the World Juniors. I'm not sure. Obviously, the Hughes brothers will be there for Team USA, and I would be surprised if Wallstrom wasn't there. But it's going to be interesting because there's word that Brady Tkachuk might be joining the Ottawa Senators or their AHL team this season if he doesn't go to the London Knights. So that might be somebody they miss out on. But either way, I feel like with Josh Norris, he's one of those guys who can who can make the players around him better. And I mean, I don't think Josh Norris is going to be the second coming of Joe Thornton, but if he can turn into a player similar to like a Logan Couture, then eventually he's going to be a big time player, and it'll be perfect timing too. The with the older guys kind of coming out, younger guys coming in, and I'll tell you, like 2 years from now, or even next year, and even a little bit this year, the Barracuda is going to be filthy. Like with how much forward prospects they've got coming in, it's going to be unbelievable. And Phil saying, do the Sharks have an ECHL affiliate yet? I don't believe that they do. And there's nothing saying that they have to have one, but I think if you're looking at how many AHL eligible prospects they have in the pipe, I think it would be smart to get one. Just because you don't want guys, you don't want guys like Joachim Blickfield. You don't want them as healthy scratches. You want them playing. And so I think if they are going to get one, they should probably get on that soon. But again, I mean, it's the 12th of August. Plenty of time to get things rolling there. Dave, talking about Quinn Hughes. Yeah, I honestly, watching Quinn Hughes, I couldn't get enough of him, and I was really surprised that he slid all the way to Vancouver. And I feel like we all like to bust on Vancouver a little bit, which is totally deserving. But I was looking at their prospects they've got coming through, and man, I'm really nervous that Vancouver could become a scary team like they were a few years ago. I mean, they've already got Quinn Hughes, who honestly probably could play in the NHL right now. And then they've got Ole Ulevi as well, who was arguably the best defenseman in the 2017 draft. Elias Pettersson is probably going to be in the NHL this year. And then even the guys who are still there, you got Horvat, you got Brock Besser. Sven Berchi is not really a prospect, but again, another young guy that I like. So it's interesting to see. I feel like with Vancouver, they've been, crap, for lack of a better word, for so long, but I feel like Vancouver is going to come around again, and I feel like it's going to surprise a lot of people. And a product of that is, the Sedins leaving. I mean, the Sedins, not bad players by any stretch, but them coming out, it allows some other guys to grab roster spots, creates more open competition, and it's going to be interesting. Cheryl might see Vancouver games, just watch Besser play. I don't know if it definitely was not conscious, so it was probably subconscious, but I feel like whenever I was not doing anything and wanted to watch a hockey game, my first inclination was to always see if the Canucks were playing. And yeah, I mean, they're a fun team to watch. Even with Horvat getting hurt there in the middle, I still thought he had a really good season, and the young guys I thought did really well. Yeah, Vince, some really stupid contracts. I mean, I believe it was Jay Beagle and Antoine Roussel, both 4 years. Yeah, they I mean, they're not bad players. They are fourth line players, and I think they're a good fit for that team. But at the, you're giving out that kind of contract. In my eyes, you're basically saying that you're going to be bad for 4 more years. That's how I envision that, because, eventually guys are going to have to get paid, and maybe they convince Besser to not break the bank on his first contract. But even so, I mean, all the guys we've listed off, like obviously Jonathan Dahlin is there, Hughes, Yolevi, Pedersen. I mean, these guys are going to need money eventually, and I think for Vancouver's benefit, I think those big contracts will run out just in time for them to re-sign their prospects. But you have to be careful. I mean, you look at a team like the Florida Panthers, where they signed Dave Bolin to that big, massive contract just to get to the cap floor. And then, a season and a half later, they were a playoff team, and he was not a part of it. So you kind of have to be careful with that kind of stuff. Dave, they could be compliance buyouts. I don't know if compliance buyouts are going to be a thing in the next CBA, just because I don't know what the league is going to do with the salary cap. But the cap did also rise really high this year, going from, I believe it was 75 to 79.5 million. So, who's to say the NHL has a bad year in terms of revenue? Maybe they do have to lower their cap again like they did in 2013. And, who knows? Maybe that is something that becomes a thing again. I just hope that if it does become a thing, the Sharks won't have to use it. Because, I mean, the Sharks got lucky. The one guy they used the compliance buyout on was, close to expiring anyways. But still, I mean, they're nice to have, but ideally, you would just never sign a bad contract. And yes, Trevor Linden is gone, which is very interesting to me. I feel like a lot of that is because of reputation. Obviously Trevor Linden is, he's a hero in Vancouver. He was their captain. I believe he was, was their best player for a while. And then, he comes in as, I believe he was the president, and they did not have some good seasons with him in the fold. So I honestly think it was a reputation kind of thing. For all we know, it could be clashes between him and the owner, or him and Jim Benning. It's really hard to say what it is, but I think from Trevor Linden's perspective, I think it was smart to get out when he did. And that's kind of like something that I've thought about in general too, is what is Jim Benning doing? Now, when the Canucks first hired Jim Benning, I was really into him. His first day on the job, he got a pretty substantial package for Ryan Kessler. And, I know myself and a lot of other Sharks fans, that was the time when we were all salty about the reverse sweep and that sort of stuff. So for me, seeing that, I was very much like, that's the kind of GM we need, somebody who's proactive and makes a trade on their first day. And, even drafting Jake Virtanen and Jared McCann in that year's draft, I mean, I really thought Jim Benning was going to get things rolling there. But then, you look at the trade and subsequent signing for Eric Goodbranson, you look at Roussel, you look at Jay Beagle, you look at Louis Eriksson. I mean, these are all very questionable signings the team has made the last 4 years. And I always refer to him as, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, because on one hand, he makes all these very awful signings, but then when it comes to the draft, he's like the best drafter. I mean, Ole Ulevi, Elias Pettersson, Quinn Hughes. I mean, these are all stud players who, again, probably could be in the NHL this year, but at the same time, probably good that they won't be. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. Vancouver's interesting. I feel like every time the Sharks are about to get passed up by all the other teams in the division, and their window is closing or whatever, I feel like they do something to throw it back open. I mean, there was talk after the cup run didn't go the way we wanted to, that the window was closed, and then Brent Burns wins the Norris Trophy, and we trade for Evander Kane, and all this good stuff that's encouraging. Kind of reopens the window and gives more hope. But Vancouver, I really think Vancouver is going places, and obviously the Vegas Golden Knights. I mean, the team they put out this past year was already good, and they've got a bunch of draft picks still the next 3 years. Anaheim, LA, I'm unsure on those. But Edmonton, I think if they can figure it out, they'll be something. Arizona Coyotes, I've said it every year the last 3 years, but I'm saying it now. Arizona Coyotes are going to make the playoffs, and I'll probably be wrong, but I still have to say it. So the 6 or 8 of you who are in here, I said it here. I don't know. Pacific is interesting. I feel like 1 year it's the best division in the league and the most competitive, and then the next year, it's the worst. So I'm not really sure how I feel about the Pacific Division. Yes, Jessica, Penguins not winning the cup again. Sure, best part, whatever you say. Anyways, no, I'm just messing around. But yeah, I don't know. Pacific Division going to be interesting. I still think the Sharks have their name in the conversation for top of the division. And yeah, Dave, I'm with you, brother. Desert Dogs making it all the way. Not Stanley Cup, but all the way for them is the playoffs, because it's been a while. That team just has way too much young talent to not make the playoffs. And, Chikrin is going to be healthy. And you look at Antti Ranta, awful start last year. Awful start. Probably the worst goalie in the league, to be honest. But his last 20 starts of the season, I believe he only let in more than 2 goals twice. Something like that, which is ridiculous. And if he can play like that all year, Arizona shouldn't have a problem making the playoffs. A lot of you guys talking about Doug Wilson Jr. Yeah, I'm excited too. If you watch that Shaping the Sharks video they did before the draft, he was very much, he was very much vocal on getting Ryan Merkley to be the Sharks draft pick. And if that's the type of head scout he's going to be, then I am 1,000% on board with it. I like watching them, the team, the scouting staff specifically, being aggressive, going after the guy they want, not really worrying about, public perception and that kind of stuff. So, I'm happy to see him come into the fold. Yeah, Phil, Buffalo too. Buffalo and Arizona, I think they're both on their way. Arizona probably could make the playoffs this year. Buffalo, if anything, will probably fight for a wild card spot until the very end, like Florida did this past year, but I don't think Buffalo's quite there yet. I think if Buffalo is able to get another solid defenseman between now and regular season, then anything is possible. But I say right now, Buffalo is going to be a lot closer than people think. If Merkley is a Norris winner, you know who to think. Yeah, absolutely. I think that's going to be a good pick. Eventually, I mean, you throw away the attitude problems and what other people think of him and all that. I mean, the Sharks got one of the best defensemen available in the draft, and that's what every scout said, was if he didn't have attitude problems, he would be going top 10. And, we kind of already talked about this last month, but, he's going to a sports psychologist and to a counselor, and he's acknowledged his issues and he's working through them. And that alone should be encouragement that Merkley is going to be a good player for the team. And you know what? In 2 years, Brendan Dillon and Justin Braun are both going to be unrestricted free agents. Maybe that's the perfect timing for Merkley to slide right into that pairing with Marc-Edouard Vlasic. Anything is possible. Like I said, I think for all the years that the Sharks defense has been the question mark, I think it's probably, at least at the NHL level, not so much AHL or prospects, but at the NHL level, it's the strongest it's ever been. And yeah, Dave saying kid's a teenager, give him some time to mature. You know what? I said it in our draft show. How many in the chat when you were 17? How many of you did at least one stupid thing? And everybody said, yeah, they did. So, I feel like we forget that these are kids that we're talking about, and I was guilty of it too. Watching the Helenka Gretzky tournament, there were a lot of instances where I'm watching something and I don't want to say I'm like getting angry, but I'm just watching and I'm like, why would you do that? Like, that was dumb. You shouldn't have done that. But then I remember, this is an under 18 tournament. These are all kids, so you got to give them time to grow and process the game and that kind of stuff. And yeah, Dave and Vince both saying, they got him to an ELC. You can't expect him to be a pro when he's not a pro yet. I really think that this is going to be a huge addition for the Sharks come future time. Yeah, agreed, Cheryl. Bad ending to that. It was that tournament. Yeah, it was. It definitely had a lot of controversy. There was the goal no goal issue against Team USA, and I don't know, even that Russia USA bronze medal game. Even though Russia won, I just feel like there were so many weird moments in that game. But you know what? Like I said, it's an under 18 tournament. They're kids. It's not a sanctioned tournament, so it's not really for anything besides I guess bragging rights and a medal. But again, that's not the top of the mountain. Yeah. What else do you guys want to talk about? I did not realize it's been almost 40 minutes. I'm impressed. I'm impressed that it wasn't 20 minutes of me just being like, yeah, okay, so, yeah, I don't know what to say. You guys did a really good job at getting me to talk about stuff. My plan was to go until like 9 o'clock. But, I mean, if you guys have a bunch of other stuff you want me to talk about, I don't have a problem going over 9 o'clock. So, yeah, I guess just let me know. Thanks, Jessica. Do I think Todd McClellan? Oh, wow. Dave must live in the Central Time Zone. Yeah. Well, glad you made it out, Dave. Have a good night. And hopefully we will see you back on the next show. Let's see. Do you think Todd McClellan is on a short leash? That's hard to say because I feel like in any case, the coach is always the victim regardless of how things went down. But I think especially in Edmonton, like I don't blame Todd McClellan for a single thing that went wrong in Edmonton. I mean, at the end of the day, it's the GM who gets the players, and we all know what Chiarelli's been up to the last 3 years. And then it's on the players to step up. Now, Connor McDavid had another good year. Same with Leon Draisaitl. Puljujärvi is going to be huge, and their decor I think is on the way. I mean, Clefbaum was injured, obviously, so that hurts things. Darnell Nurse had a breakout year, so they've got a lot of good stuff coming their way, but with that, there's also a lot of question marks. I mean, Ryan Strome, can he replace what Jordan Eberle was providing? I personally don't think so, but we'll see. Nugent Hopkins, for all we know, could be traded. Even though he's not, old by any stretch, like he's still been there for a while. And then obviously Andre Sekera, Cam Talbot, like these are all guys who, are getting up there, and they're in that situation where if something, and when I say something, I mean like a Stanley Cup, if something doesn't get done soon, then, their clock is going to run out. I don't know. Edmonton's in a weird spot. I feel like Todd McClellan is on a short leash, but he doesn't deserve to be, if that makes sense. And I feel like that's a total cop-out answer, but I feel like that's how it is with most coaches, where, the GM will bring in a bad player, and that bad player plays bad, and it's the coach's fault. I mean, we all remember when Todd McClellan, quote-unquote, mutually parted ways with the Sharks. So it's really anybody's guess. I think he probably will, or is on the short leash rather, but whether he deserves it or not, I don't think he does. How does this affect the Leafs? Well, Connor McDavid is from the Greater Toronto area. So when his 8-year deal expires, I expect him to bring his 0 Stanley Cups to Toronto. This has been How Does This Affect the Leafs with Hockey Jerk. Back to our regularly scheduled programming. Which hockey player has the hottest girlfriend on the Sharks? Great question. I really don't know. Hard to say. Steve saying it'd be a nightmare. Anything involving Toronto is a nightmare. I'm just kidding. I've never been to Toronto. But Maple Leafs fans are wild. Like, when all this Tavares stuff was going down, like, even myself, I said on Twitter, I was like, I don't know if Tavares I don't know if Tavares is a fit for the Maple Leafs, and elaborated in a really a respectful and logically thought out way. And I had a Maple Leafs fan reply and was like, well, he's gonna come home and blah blah blah, you're just a bitter Sharks fan and all this stuff. And I'm like thinking, number one, okay, thanks. Number two, I didn't really do anything to you. But yeah, Maple Leafs fans are wild. But I feel like that's a product of Canada in general. I mean, not that there's anything wrong with that. The passion is obviously awesome, and I'd like to see that level of passion on a national scale. But Canadian fans love their hockey, and especially in places like Montreal and Toronto, where it's just blind faith based on culture, and not even what have you done for me lately, but what have you done? I mean, Montreal hasn't won a Stanley Cup in 25 years, and they're still the team to talk about whenever Stanley Cup's legacy comes up. I'm you know what, Vince, that one was a tough one. I will give you that. But you know what? You just have to be better. I mean, that's how it is. I'm sorry to tell you, but your how does this affect the Leafs question was not tough enough. But good try, kid. I can't even pretend to be a real jerk anymore, because because you guys are sitting here listening to me talk to myself, and it's awesome. And so it's kind of hard for me to even pretend to be a jerk, because you guys are just like, yep, we're gonna listen to this guy talk. So yeah, Jesus. What else, you guys? I mean, I feel like this summer has just flown by. You know what I mean? It wasn't that long ago that Vegas, and Capitals wrapped up their series, and then it's August. I mean, August is generally the slowest hockey month, but at the same time, we're a month away from Leafs. See, I got the Leafs on my mind now here. We're a month away from games again. I mean, preseason is what it is, but it's still hockey. You can buy a ticket and go and watch NHL caliber-ish hockey. We're getting close, guys. We're almost there. Leafs fans during the JT meetings. My brother's girlfriend's cousin, who goes to school with a guy who went to Tim Hortons this morning and served us. You know what? That's pretty much how Toronto is from what I've heard. It's very much, very much like that. A Leafs fan is someone who will pay any amount of money. Yeah, it's funny that you say that, Phil, because I saw it was a few years ago. Somebody posted on Twitter. It was a ticket. Granted, it was on the glass, but it was Hurricanes versus the Maple Leafs in Toronto. Now, at the time, both those teams were not only non-playoff teams, but pretty bad playoff teams. So you've got two bad teams. A ticket on the glass was $400, and it's just crazy. we talk about Sharks tickets being really expensive, but that's like a regular season game between two non-playoff teams. That's ridiculous. Like, I don't know if I would pay that much, even if my team. Well, that's not true. If I knew for certain the Sharks were going to win the Stanley Cup, I would probably buy a $400 ticket. Yeah, okay. But like, if they're a non-playoff team, no way. I'll gladly watch from home. I think that's weird. Like, not weird, but sometimes I think about that. Like, we as Sharks fans, like we have our things, our little traditions and our groups and all the stuff that we think is normal. But I sometimes wonder, like, if other teams' fans have stuff that they think is weird or they do, or their traditions. Like, I've always been curious as to what other teams' fans like are really get down with. Totally random thought, but all this talk about non-Sharks teams is making the mind wander. Cheryl has a spare ticket for preseason. Jessica, you're called out in this one. Might want to hit her up. Spent so much money when Chicago kicked our ass in the car. Yeah, you know what? I do remember that series, but I don't. You know what? That was the first conference final since 2004. So I think, given the circumstances, I think it's justified to spend that much money, and that series in general, like yes, they were swept, right? The Sharks were swept out in 4 games, but they led at one point in every single one of those games. It's not hard to believe that series could have gone another way, and as y'all know, I hate playing the what-if game when it comes to hockey, but it's just one of those things where it's like, damn, could you imagine if that had gone differently? Yeah, hockey's weird. It's like it's really just a sport, and like Jessica said, they're professional athletes who make a lot of money, but they're also just people. And we watch religiously and we spend money and time, and it's just crazy. Being a sports fan is crazy. But I would also not want to not be a sports fan, because I feel like being a sports fan, helps you make a lot of friends that you wouldn't have made otherwise. Yeah, I'm with you, Steve. Sharks better win a Stanley Cup, hopefully. I mean, I really want them to win one. Yeah, like you said, before we die. That would be nice. Hopefully they win a Stanley Cup before Vegas does. And hopefully they win a Stanley Cup before any other teams that came in the league after them. I also hope that they win a Stanley Cup before LA does again. Because that's probably the one thing that I get tired of is hearing as a Sharks fan is, when LA Kings fans say, well, we've got 2 Stanley Cups and you've got 0. And it's like, okay, well, if you do some math, the LA Kings took, I believe it was 44 years to win their first Stanley Cup. Or 45. And the Sharks, I mean, we're in year 28. So as far as I'm concerned, we've got plenty of time to get our first cup before we can be the quote-unquote laughingstock of California. Jessica, I think they'll win in my lifetime. Hey, hopefully. I don't know. I mean, I think about it now. The Maple Leafs haven't won a Stanley Cup in 51 years. And I think about how old I'll be in 51 years, and I don't really like it. But, anything is possible. So, I don't know. I feel like I don't really know how I'll be feeling when they eventually do win the Stanley Cup. Because I remember when they went to the final for the first time, I watched Game 6 against St. Louis. Watched the, watched post game, and then, turned off the TV, and like that was it. I was just like, cool, won another game, on to the next round, whatever. And then like I really thought about it, and I'm like, holy crap, like they're going to the final for the first time ever. Like it took a while for it to like click in my head at what could possibly happen. And I feel like when the Sharks win the Stanley Cup, I feel like it'll be the same kind of thing where they'll win, and at first it'll just be like, okay, cool, whatever, they did it. And then eventually it'll like click, like, yeah, in 51 years I'll be 72. Oh my lord. Oh, well, Jessica, I hope they win a cup for you by then. Who knows? Maybe when you're 72, they'll win the cup. Hopefully not, but hey, never know. I just hope it's not one of those things where, we go to a game and it's like, oh, this is so-and-so, and they're, 1,000 years old and they want to see a Stanley Cup. Like, that would... The moral of my story is that I hope that they win a cup soon-ish. Well, we are coming up on 9 o'clock, which is when I said I wanted to get off. But if there is a compelling conversation topic put into the chat, then I would gladly keep going about it. So it's on you guys to provide me with something to talk about. I will be the old guy with the giant teeth in 209. Hey, you know what? Gotta represent. Gotta get your teeth out there. Gotta get noticed. Gotta show your support. And I hope that all of you get to go to a game this year. I between school and other stuff, I only went to a couple games this year, but I'm hoping to go to more. But it's tough. Yeah, Jessica says no homework tonight. There were so many games that I was supposed to go to, and so many podcasts I was supposed to do that I couldn't do last year because of homework. School is crazy. That's all I'll say. That nursing home Stanley Cup party is going to be lit. Yes, Vince, spoken like a true millennial. Yeah, it's tough, but even they put the giant teeth in the Black Dog opening video. They did, really? That's awesome. I had no idea. You'll have to post that video somewhere, tweet it or whatever. I'd like to see that. But yeah, like even with school and like all the other stuff, it was tough, but hoping to get back around and especially too like the that year the year the Barracuda went to the Western Conference Final. I was taking a year off from school, and so I was able to watch and go to like so many games. It was unbelievable, and I feel like I knew everything there was to know. And then here comes last year where I'm back at school, and like there were long stretches where I didn't even know how many games the Barracuda had played. Like it was that crazy. Between Millennial and Gen Z, yeah, I feel you there. I'm with you there, Jessica. I think we were born around the same time, so I'm with you there. What else you guys want to talk about? Hockey? I know the Sharks haven't really done a whole lot, and there's not a whole lot to talk about, but if you guys are into that sort of thing, we can talk about other teams. We can talk about the AHL. If you have, I don't know, hockey theories, or I don't want to say fan fiction, but I don't know, anything hockey related, I will gladly spill my mind on it. I don't know if that's an actual phrase, but I think it is now. Yeah, this is not gonna lie. This is kind of tough. I mean, it's been almost an hour just me talking. What CUDA players do you think we'll see on the big team? Now, okay, so in terms of regular roster players, nobody. I think the Sharks lineup that they had last year in the playoffs is I think it's going to be the lineup for them this year, obviously with the exception of Bodker and Eric Fair, but I don't think we're going to see any AHL call-ups. But as for like injury players, like if somebody gets hurt who comes through, Rudolph Balcers comes to mind, obviously. Radim Shimmick and Kyle Wood both come to mind as well, both decent scoring defensemen. So I don't think anybody starts from the Barracuda starts with the team, but I mean, call-ups are definitely a possibility. Dark horse to make the team. Well, I really think it all depends on what happens with Tim Heed, because if Tim Heed is the seventh defenseman again, then I would say nobody, at least on the defensive front. But, you know, say Tim Heed is traded or what have you, you know, like I said, Kyle Wood is an option, Radim Shimmick is an option, and yeah, Phil says Middleton. I'm with you. I really liked Jacob Middleton. Towards the end of the season last year, and even at the whatever it's called, the prospect scrimmage too. He was really good there. Yeah, Hall Bigawatts is gonna be there as well. In terms of forwards, I'm looking at guys who are notorious for putting the puck in the net. In terms of calls, because I mean, as we've seen, you know, you could probably put a mannequin with Joe Thornton, and the mannequin would score 20 goals. So probably like some of the higher scoring players, like Balcers, like Hall Bigawatts, like those will probably be guys who get called up if there's an injury. And then, you know, you just plop them down with Joe Thornton, or you plop them down with Logan Couture, and anything's possible. Yeah, Shimmick as well could be another possibility. You know, I don't think Shimmick will be the sixth defenseman, but I think he could be, you know, the seventh defenseman, like I said, if somebody gets hurt. But I would say the Sharks roster, despite only trading guys away and not bringing anybody in, I still think the Sharks roster is pretty set. I mean, I don't really count Ebrell or Suomela because they never played for the Barracuda. So in my opinion, they're already on the team kind of thing. Yeah, Vince, I also pray for Wozniak, especially because when he got hurt, he was playing his best hockey, you know. So you hope he comes back and he hasn't missed a step in his development. Steve says, wonders if Jumbo can make it back. You know, I think so. I don't think he would have signed another contract if he didn't. I don't think he would have signed if he didn't think he could get. And it is weird because he came back from his knee injury last year, and I feel like in some respects he was playing better. So he's coming back from another knee injury this year. You know, who knows? I mean, could Joe Thornton hit 20 goals again? Hey, maybe. No way to know for sure. Sorry, I had to take a sip of some water here. It's hard talking by yourself. You usually when I'll take a sip of water or, you know, yawn or cough or something while Ian or Kevin are talking, but it's just me. So, like, I'm trying to not leave any dead air, but it's tough. Yeah, Phil, I'm with you. I think he could get traded. Heat is tough because he's very good offensively. Like, I almost think Tim Heed could have been the fourth line winger, to be honest with you. Like, offensively, I think he's really good. But, you know, defensively is another story. I mean, he's not awful, but, you know, he's not a total stud defensively either. So I don't know. It's tough. I mean, you have to wonder if he even has value at this point. I think if you're trading him, or at least attempting to trade him a year ago, I think he's got all the value in the world. But now I'm not so sure. I think we may see a situation where, you know, Tim Heed plays a couple games at the start of the season just to get other teams watching him, and then they'll go from there. You know, I don't know. It's going to be interesting, and it's a long season too. I mean, you know, I sure as hell didn't think we were going to make any trades last year, and then here comes Eric Fair, here comes Vander Kane. You know, so, and these are like last second, you know, trades. Does Ryan stay with Burns? Yeah, I think he does. Burns and Dillon had some success last year, but ultimately I think you want to do Ryan Burns and Dillon DeMello, just because Dillon and DeMello were a really good and underrated third pair last year. You could trust them in the final minute of a game, and they even chipped in on the offense a little bit. DeMello and Dillon, I believe, could be wrong. I think DeMello had a career high in points, and Dillon had a career high in goals. So, obviously both good years for them. And then, you're not breaking up Vlasic Bronze. There's just no way that's happening. So, really, you are stuck with Ryan Burns, and I use stuck very loosely because I think it's a really good pairing. And, Paul Martin's not coming back either. So, DeBoer doesn't really have a choice. There will be no old boys club in play here. It's going to be Joachim Ryan, and you know what? I think it's going to be good. I don't think Joachim Ryan was trusted as much as he should have been this past year, but, good on Doug Wilson for not giving Peter DeBoer a choice in that respect and forcing him to play Joachim Ryan. I wish D-Dems would work on the Muffet shot. Yeah, seriously. That shot, his shot is weird because when he gets it off, it's actually a pretty decent shot. But the chances of him getting it off is what's weird because he doesn't do it a whole lot. I mean, he played 60-some-odd games last year and had 0 goals. So, tough. Ryan with Burns unless Paul Martin and PDB pull some Mike Fisher. Well, I don't know. What they should have done, Vince, is they should have traded Paul Martin to somebody, bought him out, and then re-sign him like they did with Brooks Orpik, which, by the way, if that's not cap circumvention, I don't know what is. Like, the CBA has a policy in place where you cannot re-sign a player that you buy out until a full calendar year goes by. So Washington trades Orpik to Colorado, and Colorado buys him out, and then Washington re-signs him. Like I said, that's totally cap circumvention. And yeah, Jessica says, Martin, Hansen, Bodker, probably Ward, all gone. You know what? Those were. It sucks because like we established earlier, they're people, right? They're people, but they were all really expensive players who weren't contributing to a level that their contract dictated. And so I think it was perfect timing that they all came off the books at the same time. So I think it, from a team perspective, I think it worked out well. We'll just have to file that Orpik ordeal in the cold case Robot Island files. Yeah, that's going to, everybody's going to forget that happened. And then when the NHL locks out the players again in 2 years, that's going to miraculously make its way out of the woodwork, where the NHL will probably be like, well, hey, what about this Orpik deal? We demand 55%. Hey, we got some people coming in. Rob Iman, AJ Strong, welcome to the solo jerk cast, we're calling it. How's it going, guys? Glad you could make it out at the very end, but you know what? It's all good. If you haven't already, subscribe, obviously. Tell a friend, and they'll tell a friend, and hopefully they'll tell a friend, and then sure enough, we will be more popular than NHL Network. That's the goal in life. Everybody's getting on me for yawning. Well, you know what? If you live in the Bay Area, today was a really hot day. So, you get if you've got air conditioning or you got the fan going or whatever, you get your room feeling cool, perfect nap time. And, I took a nap today. It was fantastic. A little pregame nap. Still feeling it a little bit, but you know what? Whatever. It's fine. Dog straight up started sprinting. Oh, Jessica, I'm very familiar with that. Steve, AC's blasting. You probably can't hear it, but I got a fan behind me that is putting in some serious work right now, and it's it's saving my life. I don't know how I survived without it. But yeah. So we got some new people. Well, quote unquote new. AJ, Rob, you guys have anything you want to talk about? You want me to talk about? We've been going at this for about an hour, and we're already 10 minutes past when I wanted to stop. So I guess at this point, just keep going for a little bit longer. If there's anything in particular you want to talk about, hockey related, whatever. AJ, if you want me to play Freebird, let me know. Little inside joke. Took a 20-minute nap. Hey, Jessica's doing it right. See, there you go. Hockey returning to downtown Fresno. Really? I'm trying to think. Because Fresno had the Falcons, right? Or did they have somebody else and I'm just making things up? Because I know Fresno had a team for a while. No, AJ, what this is all my other compatriots are MIA, and I wanted to do something, do a show, quote unquote show. So here we are. Been going solo for about an hour, and it's surprisingly gone really well. Though I am fading fast, so I'm not sure how much longer we'll do this. This has totally gone off the rails. Like, this was like, a quasi legit like hockey conversation, and then now we're talking about dogs and air conditioning and all this stuff. Is there a list out on what people will be signing at FanFest? I imagine it will probably be all the players. I know in years past it's been all the players, and then a few of the like Barracuda guys who may come up, but I'm not sure. Don't say anything revealing. Competing podcast doing recon. Hey, well, you know what? I've got a hand in both podcasts, so it's fine. But I appreciate you looking out, Phil. Yeah, I feel like I'm just gonna call it there. I really don't have anything else to say. Well, this has been fun. I appreciate you guys sticking through my ums and uhs and means a lot. I'm glad we were able to all get back together here and chat about hockey. Those of you who showed up late, don't worry, because we're hoping to be back to our regularly scheduled, quote unquote, regularly scheduled programming, soon. I know Kevin is going to come back from vacation soon, and I know Ian is on the tail end of some stuff that he's been working on. So only a matter of time before the three of us will be back talking about things. I'm sure we'll have some division previews coming up, maybe even some team previews, depending on timing and how many times we can get together between now and the season. And it's we're trying to get out some more shows before the season starts. Timing is just really weird, but we're going to try and make it happen one way or another. So you can follow me on Twitter at hockey_jerk. Also follow the podcast. I believe it's at Teal Tinted Pod on Twitter. Also subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Tell 2 friends, and they'll tell 2 friends. They'll tell 2 friends, and then eventually everybody on the planet will know, and it will be great. Like this video, I guess. I don't know if that's a thing or not. This will probably be on SoundCloud eventually if you want to listen to it again, but I don't know how to do that. So that's something else I'll have to figure out. Other than that, appreciate you guys coming out, and I will chat with you guys later.